Hello, America. Today we're going to discuss the push in Congress for fiscal sanity, judicial overreach, the no tax on tips or overtime, and the enduring importance of free speech. Along the way, we're going to highlight some of the positive directions that President Trump has provided for us, especially in contrast to the failures of the so-called Otto Harris administration, where it was often unclear if President Biden was even aware of what was being signed in his name. So we've got a lot to get to today. Let's get going.
This is The Springer Show, the voice of conservative truth. And now, here is your host, Brian Springer.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in. Appreciate you coming along on this ride with us today. Do me a favor, if you can, if you got time, if you got a moment before we really get started, go ahead and hit a like, a share, a follow, something, wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching. If you're watching, you're just seeing a black screen, but you can hear my voice. So share us, help us get the word out here. This is The Springer Show, the voice of conservative truth. We do our very best to present the conservative truth to everybody who cares to hear it. So I do want to mention something before we really get into the meat of the show. You may remember DJ Daniel. He was the 13-year-old young man who President Trump recognized and honored during the most recent State of the Union address back in March. DJ was diagnosed with brain and spinal cancer back in 2018, and DJ has been undergoing treatment ever since then. Sadly, on May 19th of this year, during a swearing-in ceremony at the Williamson County Sheriff's Office in Texas, DJ Daniel's father, Theodis Daniel, publicly shared that DJ has been diagnosed with 3 new tumors. The official White House account posted on X recently, and they said, we're lifting up Agent DJ Daniel in prayer after his dad, Theodis, shared that DJ is now facing 3 new tumors. DJ is one of the strongest, bravest young men and has now been sworn into 1,351 law enforcement agencies across the country. Agent Daniel, you're a true legend. Man, I'll tell you what, this kid, he's a warrior for sure. Cancer's not an easy thing for anybody, not just DJ, but anybody going through it. So let's offer up some prayers for DJ and his family for sure. So folks, I'm really glad to have you here. Before we get much further, I want to apologize because I've listened to every podcast that I've made, and the audio is up, down, all around. Listen, I'm just a simple guy with a microphone and a computer in an untreated room. I don't have a special studio. I don't have fancy equipment. It's just me wanting to talk to you guys, get the news and the information out there, just keep it real, amateur, down home. I try to do my best. The more I learn about this, the better I can get and perhaps give you a better show. Over time, I do plan on getting a treated studio, something that sounds a lot better. We have had a few guests on in the past, and we've got some scheduled coming up. I want to try to get some more interviews going, some more guests, give you guys some more information out there. But either way, I really appreciate you guys sticking with me. I do my best with this audio to try to make it sound decent, nice and loud for you guys so it's not too quiet. But just bear with me. I don't have the technical staff or the support, the money, and all that stuff. Some of the bigger names do. But I really appreciate all of you who listen. Our numbers are growing by the day. I'm getting more followers on socials. I'm getting more followers on the podcast, and I really do appreciate you guys. Hopefully soon we'll get it to a point where, I can do some more live streaming of these shows and have you guys interact with me, talk to me, whatnot. This time I am live streaming on X. So we're just trying this out, see how it works. I'm not looking at X, so if you're asking me a question, typing anything, I can't see it. Go ahead and move forward. I want to mention that last episode, I spoke with a Republican candidate for U.S. Senate from North Carolina. His name was Andy Nilsen. I really appreciate him coming on the show. It was great to talk to him. I apologize about that audio. As I mentioned several times, we had a little audio snafu, but I did the best that I could to clean it up and make it somewhat presentable. Mr. Nilsen made a lot of good points. He presented a strong case for his taking the incumbent Tom Tillis out of the Senate seat. I have been in touch with the other Republican candidate for U.S. Senate, also from North Carolina, Mr. Don Brown, and I'm hoping to get him on the show in the near future. Both of these candidates will be better than allowing Tom Tillis to stay in the office. So let's everybody take a look at Andy Nilsen and Don Brown and see what we can do with that. Tom's got to go. He's a rhino through and through. His days are over. He doesn't represent conservative values in the Republican Party as he should. He's too wishy-washy. He's too back and forth, up and down. He's not somebody that we can count on to consistently follow the conservative values that we try to put him in office to do. Speaking of Republican seats, I've also reached out to Robeson County Councilman Lance Herndon and Councilwoman Judy Sampson, also of Robeson County, North Carolina, in regards to them coming on the show to speak about why there's sudden change from the Democratic Party to the Republican. I mean, it's a good thing, don't get me wrong. It gives Robeson County a Republican majority, but I was kind of hoping that they would like to speak to the people of their county and state and maybe just give us some insight as to why the sudden change. I have reached out twice to both of them, and I have yet to hear anything back, almost like they're just ignoring me. It would appear that they have no interest in speaking to their constituents or me. I don't know. Maybe we should look into that, when they come up for re-election. If they don't want to talk to us now, maybe we don't need them to talk to us then. Let's just keep that in mind, shall we? So, ladies and gentlemen, I really enjoy doing this show, and I want to do a good show for you guys every time I do it. As mentioned before, I just want to say it again. I really do appreciate you guys being here. It's because of y'all that I keep going. It's because of you guys. Yeah, I said y'all. That's that Southern coming out of me. It's because of you guys that I keep going and keep wanting to do better and keep wanting to present this information. So keep the support coming. I really, really am grateful for every one of you guys. Let's begin now talking about Congress, the United States Congress, and their renewed effort to return to pre-pandemic spending levels, which is a move that is long overdue. After the pandemic was essentially over, the emergency drafts, the emergency bills that came through stayed in place. Spending never went back down. So all we did was just keep spending and spending and spending. Now, I'm sure most of you guys and gals have jobs, homes. You understand that if you increase your spending but do not increase your income, you're going to have a bad situation. If you do this for a very long time, it's not going to be sustainable and you're going to have an extremely bad situation. That's where we're headed. We were headed. President Trump's trying to fix that. So in 2019, federal spending was about $4.4 trillion. But under the Biden administration, or as we're going to call it now, the Otto-Penn-Harris administration, that's a hat tip to Joe Pags, that figure ballooned to over $6.8 trillion by 2021. That is thanks to a massive COVID relief spending and ongoing unchecked expenditures, which are still ongoing. As of May 5th, 2025, the total gross national debt of the United States is $36.21 trillion and is projected to reach $37 trillion by approximately September 30th of this year, if the current trends continue. So what we have is runaway spending. And this runaway spending was justified as a response to the pandemic. Okay, I get it. We needed to spend extra money to do our best to keep the American populace safe. I'm with you. But the Otto Penn Harris administration failed to rein it in once the crisis had passed. Instead, what we saw was endless extensions of the emergency programs and a refusal to acknowledge the inflation and economic pain that was following. Many Americans felt abandoned, and prices soared as wages stagnated. I mean, it's just not a good recipe. Now, with President Trump back in office, there is a completely new, renewed focus on fiscal responsibility. President Trump's first term saw some historic tax reform, some deregulation, and the lowest unemployment rates in decades. He emphasized American energy independence and economic growth. He has made it clear during this term, the second one, Trump 2.0, as they call it, that returning to those very principles is going to be the path forward. President Trump's leadership stands in very sharp contrast to the confusion and lack of direction under Biden, Otto Penn, where it often seemed like Vice President Harris and a team of staffers were running the show. Not going too far into the Otto Penn thing, but now we're finding out it was Harris and Jill Biden and the chief of staff, possibly even deputy chief of staff. Lord knows who had access to this thing. Anyway, I digress. Republicans in the House Budget Committee, they're calling right now for some fiscal reform measures to rein in the spending and unleash like a pro-growth, pro-energy, and pro-work policies. And these will expand the financial future of American families. It worked the first time. I don't see why it wouldn't this time. Fiscal conservatives are really pushing to cap all kinds of discretionary spending at the 2019 levels. That would mean significant cuts and a return to the pre-pandemic priorities. So removing all these emergency extensions and going back to that spending is going to help a lot. There are some critics, however. There's always critics. There's always people who say it can't be done. They argue that that's going to hurt social programs. But those social programs weren't being hurt in 2019. Why would they be hurt now? The reality is that the unchecked spending is what has really hurt working families the most. We're talking through inflation, higher interest rates, and the weakened dollar. The U.S. dollar has been several times in discussion about no longer becoming the world's currency, and that's not good. That's not good at all. So the Federation for American Immigration Reform, FAIR, estimated that federal expenditures on illegal aliens in 2023 totaled nearly $66.5 billion, including over $11.6 billion in welfare benefits such as food stamps, SNAP, child nutrition programs, and supplemental Social Security income, which they shouldn't get any of that, by the way. The Biden Otto Penn administration expanded the use of parole and other statuses, right? And this allowed millions of illegal immigrants to qualify for federal benefits through various loopholes, including programs like Medicaid, CHIP, the Earned Income Tax Credit, the Child Tax Credit, Obamacare subsidies. The House Budget Committee reported a 124% increase in Medicaid-funded emergency services for illegal immigrants under Biden compared to the Trump administration. And executive actions provided $9 billion in Obamacare benefits to illegal immigrants. Do you realize how much money that is that we're spending on people who are not citizens of this country? Now, I'm not against immigration at all. We'll have that discussion if you want to. I am for legal immigration, but you're not a citizen. You're not a visa holder. You're not a green card holder. You're not coming here legally. You should not get one red dime, penny, nickel, quarter, dollar, anything. Especially not the Medicaid-funded services, anything that should be helping our citizens. So these services and benefits were being handed over to illegal immigrants in the U.S., while American citizens were suffering without them. You ask most citizens, they had to go through all kinds of hoops, jump through this and that to try to get them, and they couldn't. They were being denied in record numbers. Okay, Americans were being left out in the cold, and the fiscally irresponsible spending on illegal aliens under the Otto Penn Harris administration was putting America on its knees. There's absolutely no reason for that. We need to do better, America. We need to rein in this spending. We need to talk to our congressmen, women, people, whatever the PC way is now. And we need to tell them, look, we need to go back to 2019 and before spending. I understand it's going to be hard. There's going to be concessions made. There's going to be sacrifices made. If we don't do this, our nation's going to fail. Okay? You guys are not, you guys, my listeners, hopefully. But there's a lot of people who are crying and whining about the tariffs or the cuts from DOGE, the other governmental cuts. But this is how we get our nation back on track. This is how we become a fiscally responsible nation again, where we're not carrying a debt every single day of $1 trillion for just to have a debt. I mean, it's out of control. It's absolutely ludicrous. Something has to be done. We've got to work on this, okay, folks? So let's do that. Let me take a minute right now and just tell you about My Patriot Supply, okay? When disaster strikes, will your family be ready? My Patriot Supply is America's trusted source for emergency food kits, water filtration, and survival gear. Their meals are made in the USA. They require just water to prepare, and they last for up to 25 years. So you're covered for any emergency. From your 72-hour kits to month-long supplies, My Patriot Supply delivers on over 2,000 calories per person per day, meeting your real nutritional needs. So I don't want you to wait for the next crisis. I want you to go ahead and start preparing now. So visit preparewiththespringershow.com. That's preparewiththespringershow.com, and protect what matters most, your family's safety and peace of mind. Folks, are you ready to put your dollars where your values are? I'm going to suggest you switch to Patriot Mobile, the only Christian conservative wireless provider in America. With Patriot Mobile, you get reliable nationwide coverage on America's best 5G networks, affordable plans to fit any budget, and award-winning U.S.-based customer service. Okay? I've got them. I love them. The customer service is second to none. I love talking to these guys. They are helpful, super helpful, and can do almost everything you need them to do. Plus, a portion of every bill supports causes like religious freedoms, first responders, and the sanctity of life, things that we as conservatives believe in. It's very easy to switch. Just visit patriotmobile.com or call them, and don't forget to give them my name so they know that I sent you. Take a stand for your values with Patriot Mobile, America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. Switch today. All right, folks, let's keep riding on down this road here, okay? We're going to switch away from the fiscal spending or irresponsible spending of Congress, and we're going to switch to judicial overreach, which has recently become a huge problem. I, for one, don't understand why. I am not a constitutional scholar. I have read the Constitution. I've looked over it. I've studied it even more recently with all this going on because I had questions myself. You know, why are these judges doing what they're doing? Are they allowed to do what they're doing? Kind of yes, kind of no. So with all the trade tariffs and President Trump, talking to all these various countries and trying to get better deals for us, better tariff regulations for us and them, and trying to put everybody on a level playing field. You know, that took a little bit of pain, and sometimes you got to play a little hardball in order to make everybody happy. That's what he's doing. But on May 28th, 2025, the U.S. Court of International Trade, where did these guys come from? The U.S. Court of International Trade. It sounds like something that's been around for a while. I've never heard of them. Have you? Anyway, they are apparently a federal court based in Manhattan. They ruled that President Trump had exceeded his authority by imposing sweeping tariffs on imports from nearly all countries. The court's panel of 3 judges, which were appointed by presidents from both parties, found that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, the law which was cited by President Trump, did not give the president the unilateral power to impose such broad tariffs. The court went on to emphasize that the Constitution grants Congress, and Congress alone, not the president, exclusive authority to regulate commerce with foreign nations. I'll be honest, I had no idea. I didn't know. I've never studied tariffs. I've never looked at. Most of us probably haven't, even though because of all this, I've looked into some tariffs, and I've seen that the majority of presidents prior to President Trump have all had tariffs, enacted tariffs, levied tariffs, adjusted tariffs, but they were not on the forefront because why? Well, why was that? Oh, that's right, because it's not President Trump. And right now they're doing anything they can to slow his agenda down. He wants to go out there and put America first. He wants to improve our trade with other countries because we're in a huge trade deficit. And he wants to make it better for us. But for some reason, these blue dog judges, these Democrat liberal judges, don't think that's a good thing. I can't wrap my head around it. I really can't. I can't wrap my head around why the Democrats are fighting so hard to stop everything he does. I mean, the man could say that he has finally solved the war issue and has now made world peace. They're going to find a problem with it. There's probably going to be a judge throwing up something. Oh, no, can't do that either. Anyway. Oh, Lord. This panel of 3 judges, the U.S. Court of International Trade, they said that Congress is the only one who can regulate commerce with foreign nations. What they're referencing was the Commerce Clause found in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3 of the United States Constitution, which states that Congress shall have power to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among several states and with the Indian tribes. Okay. This does indeed show that Congress has the power to impose tariffs on trade with other nations. However, President Trump implemented the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which is an act primarily used for sanctions, export controls, and blocking financial transactions with countries or groups posing a threat to U.S. national security, foreign policy, or the economy. That's the last word, the economy. So this U.S. Court of International Trade says that he cannot use the IEEPA. IEPA. He can't use that. Seems to me like he can. It says right there, that, Congress does everything. He can use this for countries who pose a threat to the economy. Yeah. Having lopsided tariffs sounds like a economical threat to me. I don't know about you. The ruling specifically blocked President Trump's Liberation Day tariffs, which included a 10% tariff on most imports and higher rates up to like around 30% on goods from China, Mexico, and Canada. These tariffs were justified by the administration as necessary to address urgent threats like the fentanyl trafficking and unfair trade practices. Okay, so it is an emergency. Sounds to me like the IEPA can actually be used. However, the court determined that the emergency statute invoked did not authorize such sweeping economic measures. I don't understand why. Why do they want to fight him so bad? Anyway, within hours of their decision, the Trump administration filed an appeal. The very next day, a federal appeals court issued a temporary stay, allowing the majority, not all, the majority of President Trump's tariffs to remain in effect while the legal process continues. Okay, that's not bad. The rapid response from the appellate, I believe it's appellate. That sounds right, appellate. The rapid response from the appellate court restored key elements of the administration's trade agenda, at least for now, okay? Highlighting just how quickly these legal battles can shift the policy landscape. And it's true. I mean, you can go one way or the other, or back and forth, that quick. But that's not an isolated incident. It really isn't. President Trump's policies have been frequent targets, from immigration and border security measures to energy policy and regulatory reform. And it's sickening. All right, you've got specific examples, okay? Multiple district court judges have blocked President Trump's executive orders on immigration, including a travel ban and asylum restrictions. There have been nationwide injunctions halting the rollback of environmental regulations, changes to Title IX enforcement, orders delaying or suspending the implementation of federal rules on healthcare, education, and labor. These court actions hinge on statutory interpretation and constitutional questions, but there is an argument that some judges are overstepping their role. You think? This effectively sets national policy from the bench and undermines the authority of a duly elected president. They're trying to run the country from the bench, folks. They need to just stay in their lane, right? So supporters of judicial intervention contend that the courts are a necessary check on executive overreach, especially when Congress is gridlocked or, as they say, unwilling to act, which we have seen a little bit here lately. They argue that the judiciary's role is to ensure that the president operates within the bounds of the law and the Constitution. Well, yes. Kind of. However, opponents, including many in the Trump administration, see a troubling trend of judicial activism, where judges are substituting their own policy preferences for those of the executive branch. This is going to create uncertainty for businesses. It's going to slow down urgent policy responses. And it's going to erode the separation of the powers. Okay? It's ridiculous. The liberal left here are utilizing blue dog judges to pose a threat to our system of checks and balances. The first 3 articles of the United States Constitution allow for the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government. Article 3, Section 1 of the United States Constitution, in the very first sentence, states, "The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish." Congress may ordain the lower courts. And they have. They made district courts. Meaning they have jurisdiction over and preside over their individual, what is it again? Districts. These court orders that these liberal judges are throwing out, by every means of the law, should only affect their individual district. However, they are making nationwide rulings. I don't understand why. So far, the majority of these silly rulings have been struck down by the Supreme Court, thank God. But the Supreme Court needs to put a stop to these district court judges who are trying to impose not only on the executive branch, but on the legislative branch as well. These judges can't come in here and make law, pass law, or rule the country. And these are district judges. District, the key word, district. Do I need to look this up? Maybe I don't know what it means. District. So these cats are in charge of their district. If you want to make a ruling that affects your district, go ahead. By all means, you have that right. You do not have a right to make a ruling on something that is nationwide, is affected nationally, has anything to do with national security, foreign relations, or otherwise. I don't even know why I'm wasting my breath on this. We all know this. But if we continue to let these district court judges make rulings that will impact this entire nation, what we're going to do is set a precedent that we're okay with that. No judge, not even the Supreme Court, is supposed to make orders, injunctions, or otherwise that affect the entire nation and relegate the powers of the Congress and President of the United States of America. The Supreme Court was the most unimportant of the 3 articles. And I don't mean that they're useless and unimportant. I mean that so little thought was given to them. They were put in the basement of Congress. They say, y'all just stay down there in the basement. Of course, now they got a big, real fancy building, I guess that's what they need. But the Supreme Court is there not to come up and make rulings and say, hey, we want to run the country this way. Hey, the president's doing this, but, we think it should be this way. They are there to make sure the executive and the legislative branch do not overreach themselves and that they are following the letter of the law and the Constitution of the United States. That's it. They are to see cases as brought to them. But, you can't let the one Supreme Court see every single case, obviously. Now, think about the judicial system right now and how overloaded it is from the top to the bottom, from the Supreme Court down to your local magistrate or local county court. They can't see all those cases. So you have to have these smaller courts that are put in place by Congress, district courts, federal district courts, and then each state, has their own Supreme Court. And then they put in their smaller ones, their district courts or their county courts, whatnot. So there is a reason to have them. But these courts need to stay in their own lane. And what it is these Democrats have gone judge shopping. They're finding these blue dog Democratic judges, and they're going out here and saying, hey, the president did this. You need to squash it. You need to go above him. And it's so ridiculous. Now, the Supreme Court has to see every one of these issues because the Trump administration is appealing them, and rightly so. But what SCOTUS, or the Supreme Court of the United States, needs to do, in my opinion, has come out with a single ruling. Okay, listen, all you federal district court hacks, stop it. You don't have the authority or right to do this. If you have a problem, you bring it up the chain, you bring it to the Supreme Court, whatever. But you can't just go out there and make all these laws and rules and mandates because you don't like what the president's doing. Folks, it's not going to work. And this is yet another story that I can't wrap my head around why they want to fight him so bad. What did he do so bad? Show me on the doll where President Trump hurt you. I mean, really. What did he do so bad that you feel like you need to come out here and stop every single thing he's doing? Now, I've been around for a few years. I've seen Republican and Democrat presidents come and go. I have never seen such rebellious actions, such judicial overreach, such blatant disrespect for the office of the president as I have as when President Trump is holding it and these people are fighting against him every step of the way. And for what? This man truly cares about the country. He really wants us to improve the country. Why is that such a bad thing? What is the problem? Showing that he wants to improve the country, he came up with, well, not just him, but he and some lawmakers came up with the One Big Beautiful Bill, which has been in the news over and over again. There's been all kinds of talk about it. There's been all kinds of issues. And I'll say that this particular subject is kind of a hot topic for many Americans. It's the no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. As it was said, he also promised no tax on Social Security, but he can't do that with a bill such as this. He's got to have a separate bill for that, which I believe they've already worked on by now, possibly already in the House. Sorry, I had to take a little soda break. I don't know if I can say the name of the soda. Anyway, the big, beautiful bill. There are many parts of the bill that are of interest to many conservatives, but the part that really catches people's eyes is the no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. Okay. I've had many discussions with several folks about this. Most folks believe that what this means is that on their paycheck each week, bi-weekly, each month, whenever they get paid, if they have overtime, they're not going to be taxed on that overtime. And if they are a server or whomever accepts tips for their jobs, that they won't have to report them or up to a certain amount or something. So the way it was sold to the American public, I can really see that. I really can, because I was kind of right there with them. I say, wow, that's great. No more taxing on that. But they weren't specific in how they were going to get around that taxation. They just said no more taxes. So what they did was indeed no more taxes, just not the way everybody thinks. And there's several people I talked to who were upset about it. But maybe they don't understand it's still going to put money in their pocket. I mean, one way or the other, you still come to the same end. I had a teacher in the 5th grade, and she was teaching us about different ways to, I think it was get to a math problem, to solve a math problem. And she said, basically, if you want to go to McDonald's, you can go this route or that route, as long as you end up at McDonald's. That's all that matters. And I can see kind of that working here too. So I'm pretty sure the vague wording of this portion of the bill is what kind of drew many to it and mustered a lot of support for it. However, and this is just the truth, most folks don't read bills. I myself have looked over this bill. It's over 1,000 pages. It's very tedious. It's very tedious to read. So here's a little breakdown just to kind of help you understand it a bit more. First, the actual wording of each section, okay? The deductions for tips. Taxpayers earning $160,000 or less in 2025, adjusted in the future for inflation, are permitted a deduction for cash tips from an occupation that traditionally and customarily received tips to the extent the gross receipts of the taxpayer from the trade or business of receiving the tips exceeds the sum of the cost of goods sold allocably to the receipts and other expenses, losses, or deductions properly allocable to those receipts. This deduction is allowed for tax years 2025 through 2028. I don't know about you, but I'm not a lawyer. That's kind of confusing. So, overtime compensation. Deductions are allowed for overtime compensation for itemizers and non-itemizers for tax years 2025 through 2028. It's very simple. It's like one sentence. It's still confusing, though. So what does that mean in practice? Okay. Number one, tips and overtime are still reported as regular income. You're still required to report your tips and overtime pay as part of your gross income on your tax return, just as you do now. You get a deduction, not a direct exemption. The bill allows you to deduct the amount you earned in tips if you meet the criteria and your overtime pay from your taxable income. This means you pay less tax on your total income. But it's not a situation where tips and overtime are simply not taxed at all. You're getting the no tax on tips and no tax on overtime on the back end, basically. How it works, you earn your tips or your overtime pay. You report all your income, including tips and overtime, on your tax return. You then claim a deduction for the eligible amount of tips and or overtime. This deduction reduces your taxable income, which lowers the amount of tax you owe. The deduction is available for tax years 2025 through 2028 and is subject to income limits and other qualifying rules. You don't get the tax back later. You just owe less up front, which keeps more money in your pocket. It's a deduction, not a tax credit or a refund. You subtract the amount from your taxable income before calculating your tax bill, so you pay less tax up front. You don't pay the tax and then get it refunded at the end of the year, okay? For tips, the deduction is only for taxpayers earning $160,000 or less, adjusted for inflation. If you're earning $160,000 or more, why are you getting tips? I mean, am I missing something here? And only for jobs that, quote, traditionally and customarily receive tips, end quote. Whatever the hell that means. For overtime, the deduction is available to both itemizers and non-itemizers. I'm not that great with taxes. I don't know. What are we itemizing here? So now that we kind of understand the bill and how it works, we know it's not exactly what we may have been led to believe. However, it is still a really good thing for Americans. This will help increase the money in your pocket and lower your taxes at the end of the year. That's going to give you a larger refund. Anything to increase the money in our pockets and lower taxes paid in, it's a good thing in my books. So, I don't know. It's not exactly what most of us thought, but I'm not saying it's a bad thing either. What we have to do now is anything that you guys are excited about. When a lawmaker comes out, a president comes out, anybody comes out and says, hey, we're going to introduce this bill. This is what it does. And you get excited about it. I want you to go find that bill. Every one of these are public record. Go find the bill and read it. There's a lot of jargon in there that's lawyer jargon. We're not all lawyers, so some of it's a little difficult to understand. But the majority of the time, you can kind of read through these bills and understand what they're saying. Most of these bills, especially on kind God, what is it? Congress.gov or something like that. They have a summary, a plain English summary. You can read through that. But read these bills, okay? I still support this. It's just not what everybody thought. So maybe, I don't know, since we're going to be transparent with the taxpayers and the citizens of the United States, maybe a little more transparency with that. That would kind of be nice. So, anyway, let me tell you one more time about My Patriot Supply. So emergencies can happen when you really least expect them. I guess that's pretty much all of them. But with My Patriot Supply, you can get more than just food, okay? You get a full spectrum of preparedness. You can get long-term food storage. You can get advanced water filtration, solar-powered generators with EMP technology. Those are pretty cool. Heirloom seeds for food independence. Yeah, grow your own food. It's actually a fun thing to do. All products are packaged for long shelf life. They're all easy to use, and they're all shipped fast from the U.S. headquarters. So why don't you do me a favor, okay? Join millions of Americans who trust My Patriot Supply for self-reliance. Just visit preparewiththespringershow.com. Preparewiththespringershow.com. Visit that today and just be ready for anything. We're going to keep it going. We're going to keep rolling forward. We're going to keep this march going. We're all motivated. We got the momentum rolling. Are you feeling it, folks? Are you with me now? Are we here? Maybe not. Hello? Anybody there? No, I didn't think so. Okay. Well, we're going to keep going. All right. And here's something that I love to talk about. It's kind of a conservative's wet dream. It's kind of like some conservative porn. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to talk about free speech, the First Amendment. Oh, yeah. Okay, enough of that. All right, so let's talk about free speech, First Amendment. The First Amendment was ratified in 1791, and it states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I actually got through that without messing up any of the words. I'm proud of myself. So James Madison, all right, one of our founders, he drafted the First Amendment, proposed that the people shall not be deprived or abridged of their right to speak, to write, or to publish their sentiments, and the freedom of the press, as one of the great bulwarks of liberty, shall be inviolable. I think I said that right. Violable? Inviolable. Yeah. So most scholars agree that the framers intended that the First Amendment was going to provide a broad protection for speech, especially political speech. And to serve as a check on government power. So the founders viewed the ability to speak freely about government and public officials as a natural right and a safeguard against tyranny. Okay? We still have that same right today. We can openly speak freely however we feel about government and public officials. And there are many people who do and possibly even abuse that. But under the Otto Penn Harris administration, we saw a very troubling trend, okay? We saw efforts to silence dissent, label opposing views as misinformation, even when proven to be factual, correct information, and use federal agencies to pressure social media companies, we're talking to you, Maida, Meta, Facebook, into censoring speech. A 2024 Knight Foundation survey found that 63% of Americans believe free speech is under threat, and that is up sharply from just a few years ago. Of course, free speech is still under threat every day. President Trump, however, good old President Trump, he's been a consistent defender of free speech, right? Both in his policies and his principles. He has spoken out against censorship. He's got his own social media, Truth Social. I'm going to say it again for anybody who's interested in downloading it on their iPhone, iPad, Google, Samsung device, whatever you got. Truth Social. It's very close to X. And the president's on it pretty much every day. Anyway. He supports legal challenges to unconstitutional restrictions, and he called for greater protections for Americans' rights to speak their minds. He wants everybody to have the right to speak their minds, even if they're speaking out against him, because he believes in the foundation of this country. He believes in the Constitution. The contrast with the previous administration is extremely stark. While Biden and Harris presided over a culture of suppression, President Trump is working to restore the robust debate envisioned by the founders. The legal standard for free speech remains very clear here, okay? Speech is protected unless it incites imminent lawless action, which was established in Brandenburg v. Ohio, 1969. Yet the cultural battle continues with growing calls to limit speech deemed harmful or offensive. Okay, so speech can be harmful and speech can be offensive. Sure, absolutely. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That type of deal. But guess what? Words do hurt people. They hurt their feelings. They make them sad. They make them mad. They make them upset. They make them cry. I don't think we should just go out there trying to purposely hurt people's feelings or offend people. However, you can also get over it. If you're offended, guess what happens when you're offended? Nothing. Be offended. Get over it. Be an adult. Okay, somebody says something you don't like. Okay, shrug it off and move on. Or maybe take whatever they're saying, if it's perhaps negative criticism, and better yourself with it. Learn. Use it as a learning tool. Maybe do that instead of just crying in a safe space. Oh my gosh, little Timmy said something to hurt my feelings. Boo hoo hoo. Get over it, people. Anyway, there's also an ongoing debate whether those who openly oppose America's founding principles should even hold public office. I personally don't think they should. But the Constitution allows it. The question speaks to deeper concerns, however, about national unity and the health of our democracy / constitutional republic. Yes, we actually have a mix of both. There's arguments all the time about democracy. No, we have a constitutional republic. We have a healthy mix of both. Perhaps that's something we could discuss in a later episode. Anyway, restoring free speech completely, it means more than just legal protections, okay? It means fostering a culture where ideas can openly be debated and be debated honestly. President Trump's approach here is to defend that culture, ensuring that America remains a beacon of liberty in a world where free expression is increasingly under attack. I mean, have you been watching the UK? Like, good God, people. The UK, I think maybe even Germany, some other places in Europe, you can't say things, you can't put things on social media without threat of arrest. It's ridiculous. It's closing in and it's getting bad. You really have to wonder if the world was like that at one point, where you couldn't say anything against king, queen, or otherwise, or a government official without threat of arrest. You couldn't post on social media. Of course, they didn't have social media back then, but you couldn't do that freely and give your free thoughts. without threat of arrest, being wiped out, just gone from the world. And we work so hard to give freedom and liberty to other people in other places because we believe in it, because we are all about it. And they embraced it. They were like, yes, this is what the world needs. And now they're getting right back to where they were. I personally think we should withdraw ourselves from them, let them do them. Let them go arrest everybody who wants to be in those countries and live by that rule, whatever. Worry about ourselves, concern ourselves with us. We have people in Congress right now bad-mouthing the President of the United States. Before President Trump, I would never have heard any congressperson bad-mouthing the President of the United States. That is absurd to me. Even if you don't like the person, you have a respect for the office. But it's not the same anymore. The world has changed. The world has evolved. And I mean, look at the 40s, 50s, 60s. I'm talking about the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. You look at 1920 to 2020, 100 years, and the changes in just our country, our nation, in the way that people act, walk, talk, treat each other, less respect. And it's really taking a toll on us as a people, as a country. We've got to do better. We've got to do something more about this. What? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe you do. I don't have the answer. I wish I did. But we have to learn to respect each other more, give respect, give love, show care and compassion to each other. That's about the only way we're going to get back to where we were. And I don't even think that's going to happen. But we need to at least head that direction, better than the direction we're going now. And we probably need a lot more God in our life. Everybody does. As we remove God, the world just starts going to hell in a handbasket. We've got to do better. Anyway, I really appreciate you guys being with me today. That's all I've got for today. Thank you for joining me as we explored these critical issues with a focus on facts, thoughtful discussion, one-sided discussion. You weren't part of it, but I appreciate you being here. And a vision for a stronger America. Take a moment again to follow us on the socials, all of them. Just look for The Springer Show, not That Springer Show, this one. Give us a like, follow, share, whatever you can. Wherever you get your podcasts, share, like, follow, comment. We have some more great stuff coming out soon. We've got some interviews coming up. I don't want to release the names just yet, but we will very soon. So keep an ear out for that. I appreciate you guys for being here, for riding along with us. It means the world to me that you guys listen and we can share the conservative truth with you. So until next time, stay informed, stay safe, and God bless you all.